All right, everybody. Everybody ready? This is this is the guy. This is the guy we've been waiting for. I want to thank everybody for coming today to Old Weird Houston. It's been such fun spending the day with all y'all, and this is the big finish. This is a man who really needs no introduction. He's going to sort of introduce himself. It's going to unfold through the whole lecture, as a matter of fact. We're going to start with John's memories of being really one of the people who discovered the Orange Show back in the 1970s, and some special unseen photography, and then some information about his famous family who's documented so much incredible roots music in this country for over 100 years at this point. So as not to delay any longer, I'm going to introduce to you John Lomax III.
All right, thank you. I joined the Musicians Union because I play the cowbell. All right, so we're going to start in 1969 or 70. I worked for Century Papers, which was right down the road here, about 2 or 3 blocks parallel to Munger. And my wife at the time, Bidey Lomax, Julia Plummer Taylor Lomax, would come and pick me up, and we'd go have lunch, usually sit at a little table, and there was some woods nearby. And she stumbled on this, so she found it before I did, and then she brought me over, and so we would just sit around and talk and look at it. And Jeff McKissick, the designer, was always ready and happy to show what he was in the process of creating. Bear in mind, this was probably 8 years before he went on and opened it in 1979. So we're going to start with some, slides, if they'll go forward. Okay. This is my brother Joe, who was one of the board members for the Orange Show Foundation. And the pictures that you're going to be seeing shortly are photos that he and I both made, mostly in the early 80s, if not late 70s. And, when we first saw the Orange Show, we were just stunned. I mean, it was, as you can see, so, if you haven't seen it, it's just so quirky and interesting and odd, and a very, very interesting and difficult thing. This man did this whole thing by himself. A lot of it was found materials. He had all these mosaic tiles and these little sayings, and of course he had the book, which is out here for sale, that was written in 1960, that says how you can live to 100 and still be spry. And if you haven't seen it, this is what it looks like. And it's Jeff McKissick's philosophy of life, which basically meant that you had to eat a lot of amino acids, that according to him, they are the building blocks of the human body. And if you didn't eat these, if you ate food that didn't have it, you wouldn't live to 100 or be spry. Unfortunately, Jeff didn't make it that far. Here are various items that I have accumulated back in the day. Jeff, of course, did the one on the left himself, and also the other material that we're going to be going through. There's the book and the intro to the very beginning. I noticed it's for sale around at several places here. If you haven't seen it, it's quite remarkable, to say the least. And so let's see, here's more information, including the final page of the book contained tickets for you to redeem and come see the show. I guess you can't read that very well, but and here's some more shots. I don't think any of these have been seen before. So it's a pleasure to show them to you and to show stuff of work of my late brother Joe as well as myself. I hope it will be back in action soon. Of course, they're in the middle of restoring it and you can't see it. It was, just pretty amazing. Pete has a book out called Painting the Town Orange, which has a lengthy essay about Jeff and about the whole, his life and the entire creation of the Orange Show. The other thing is that he was so affable and friendly when you would just stop by and walk in, and he would be there working away, and he'd stop and he would give you a tour of the whole thing and explain how the orange was the key to staying alive and all of this. And, goofy but pleasant and friendly and a lovely fellow. He, of course, died of a stroke 7 months after the Orange Show opened in May of 1979. So it's sort of a bittersweet to be talking about him because he didn't get to see what later developed with this creation of his, and he didn't know that it would eventually be recognized nationally and that people would come from all over to see it. He was really thinking that it would be as big an attraction as the Astrodome or Disney World. And he was somewhat disappointed when that, this is my daughter Amanda trying to have a look inside because we came by at one point and it was closed then for repairs. And all right, so what we're going to go now is the Lomax on Lomax Show, which is something that I've been doing now for 18 months. I hadn't sung in my entire life, not as a performer, and I had several business things that just kind of went away. One of them was selling CDs and DVDs and LPs overseas, and then streaming literally ate my business out from under me. And then I realized that this family is amazing in that grandfather started collecting folk songs 148 years ago. Ever since that time, there has been a Lomax involved in music in one form or another, and many times several at the same time. So we're going to go through some of these songs that he found, and we're going to be showing some of the pictures that go with it. And so, it happened in Jacksboro, boys, in the year of 73, when a man by the name of Krigo came stepping up to me. Says, how do you do, young fellow, and how would you like to go and spend one summer pleasantly on the range of the buffalo? It's me being out of employment, boys. To Mr. Krigo I did say, this going out on the buffalo range, well, it depends upon the pay. If you will pay good wages, pay transportation too, I think, sir, I will go with you to the range of the buffalo. Yes, I will pay good wages, this old Krigo he did say, provided that you'll go with me and stay the summer through. But if you should go homesick, come back to Jacksboro. I will not pay your transportation from the range of the buffalo. It's now our outfit is complete, 7 able-bodied men. With Navy 6 and needle guns, our troubles did begin. Pease River is salty as hellfire, the water I could never go, and engines watch to pick us off on the range of the buffalo. Our food it was buffalo hump on iron wedge bread, and all we had to sleep on was a buffalo robe for a bed. The fleas and graybacks worked on us, so boys, they are not slow. I'd say there's no worse hell on earth than the range of the buffalo. The season being ended, this old Krigo, he did say, that we had been extravagant. We're in debt to him that day. Oh, we coaxed him and we begged him, but still it was no go. We left old Krigo's bones to bleach on the range of the buffalo. And now we've crossed Pease River, boys, and homeward we are bound. No more in that hell-fired country will ever we be found. Go back to our wives and sweethearts, tell others not to go. For God's forsaken the buffalo range and the damned old buffalo. Before I go any further, I do want to say this show is dedicated to the memory of my son, John Nova Lomax, who died in May of last year. And I would have loved to have had him up here singing with me. Also, thank you. Thank you very much. We have a book we did about him and his walks across Houston for sale back at the merch table, as well as other items of the family. I'd also like to say howdy-do to my wife who's here helping with the merch, my son and grandson, John Henry Lomax, who is over at University of Houston editing the Daily Cougar, and his mom, Jacqueline Wallace, Suzanne and John Fain and others. So thank you very much for all of you for coming. This is my grandfather. In 1876, he started writing down the words to cowboy songs. And these are songs that he heard the passing cowboys sing when they camped for the night to settle the cattle. They would sing to them to keep them calm. He started writing down these words in 1876 and continued doing this, and eventually he was able to start making sound recordings of these. Up until that time, his only way to remember the melodies of the songs that he was writing the words down was to develop his own system of notation. He had no training, no teachers, no books, and it was 34 years from that time until his first book was published. And around the turn of the century, he was able to record actual sounds with rudimentary recording equipment, starting with wax cylinders and eventually graduating up the scale as he went along. The fruits of these labors that came out 34 years after he began included the Buffalo Skinners that I just sang, and this is a copy of that first book, the two different versions. It's been reprinted a number of times now. I want to now play
Yippee-ki-yi-yo, Get Along Little Doggies is one of the great cowboy songs, considered by many to be the most beautiful, certainly by Rose Trevanthan, the gypsy singer, from whom my father found the song in 1908 in Fort Worth.
As I walked out one morning for pleasure, I spied a cowpuncher a-riding along. His hat was throwed back and his spurs was a-jingling as he approached me a-singing this song. Whoopie-tie-yi-yo, get along, you little doggies. It's your misfortune and none of my own. Whoop-a-tie-yi-o, get along, you little dogies, for you know Wyoming will be your new home. Early in the spring we round up the dogies, mark them and brand them and bob off their tails. Round up the horses, load up the chuck wagon, and throw them dogies out on the trail. And it's whooping and yelling and driving them dogies. Oh, how I wish you would go on. It's whooping and yelling and punching them dogies, for you know Wyoming will be your new home. Early in the spring we round up the, your mother, she is raised way down in Texas, where the Jimson weed and the sandburrs grow. Now we'll fill you up on prickly pear and cola, so you'll be ready for the trail to Idaho, or you'll be soup for Uncle Sam's Injuns. It's beef, 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 I hear them cry. Get along, get along, get along, you little dogies, for you'll be beef steers by and by. Whoop-a-tie-yi-o, get along, you little dogies. It's your misfortune and none of my own. Whoop-a-tie-yi-o, get along, you little dogies, for you know Wyoming will be your new home. Now, remember, all of these songs could have been lost. They could have been lost forever had grandfather not taken the time and trouble to start writing them down in the 1870s, 80s, and 90s, and the first 10 years of the last century. This is another one it's been recorded by a number of country artists, also known as the Cowboy's Lament. Last night as I lay on the prairie and looked up at the stars in the sky, I wondered if ever a cowboy would drift to that sweet by and by. The road to that bright, happy region is a dim, narrow trail, so they say, but the broad one that leads to perdition is posted and blazed all the way. Roll on, roll on, roll on, little dogies, roll on, roll on, roll on, roll on, roll on, little dogies, roll on. Well, they say he will never forget you. He knows every action and look. So for safety's sake, better get branded. Get your name in his big tally book. They say there will be a great roundup where cowboys like dogies will stand to be cut by the riders of judgment who are posted and know every brand. They tell of another great owner who's never or stocked, so they say, but he always makes room for the sinner who drifts from the straight and narrow way. Roll on, roll on, roll on, little dogies, roll on, roll on, roll on, roll on, roll on, little dogies, roll on. This is the copies of that. My grandfather wrote his autobiography in 1947, and that's the one on the left. And in 2017, the University of Texas Press put out a new version, and it has pictures, which the first didn't have, and even more importantly, it has an index, so you could find things a lot quicker. And it has a new introduction that my cousin, Dr. Anna Lomax Wood, Alan Lomax's daughter, and John Nova Lomax and myself wrote. So that book is for sale at the merch table, as it should be. So now, all those songs were very well-known Western songs and known throughout the West and Southwest. This song, the next one, first originated as a poem in 1873 called My Western Home by a Dr. Brewster Higley. Dr. Higley's neighbor saw it printed in this tiny little Kansas newspaper, and he put it to music. And over the next, let's see, what is that, 37 years between the time it was first put in print and the time grandfather put it into his book, it had achieved a lot of prominence throughout the West and Southwest. And you will probably know this song, and if you feel the spirit, you could sing along with me. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Home, home on the range. Oh, give me a land where the bright diamond sands flow leisurely down to the stream, where the graceful white swan goes gliding along like a maid in a heavenly dream. How often at night, with the heavens so bright, with the light from the glittering stars, have I laid there amazed and asked as I gazed, does their glory exceed that of ours? Where the air is so pure, the zephyrs so free, the breezes so balmy and light, I would not exchange my home on the range for all of the cities so bright. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Home, home on the range. Thank you. People ask, well, how did your grandfather make these recordings? This was right around the turn of the last century. Well, this is what he had after he realized that wax cylinders were not a sustainable option given the heat in Texas, up there he came from Meridian, which is sort of south and southwest of Dallas, southeast of Fort Worth, about 60 miles down near Lake Whitney. Well, he got a hold of one of these operations. This is the trademark, later became the trademark for RCA Victor. It's a painting by a Belgian fellow. He would take the cone-shaped thing, tie it to his saddle horn, and take the base, the rectangular base, and lash it to the back of his horse. And he would ride out in search of cowboy songs. By 1933 and 34, he had enlisted his son, Alan, who was then 18 years old, to go and embark on a trip that my father, John A. Lomax Jr., organized, which gave them wound up being a 10,000-mile journey throughout the American South collecting folk songs and all kinds of songs, because by this time my grandfather had moved from simply recording cowboy songs to recording whatever he could find that he thought the American people would want to hear down the road. So he recorded children's play party games, church services, prison laments, maritime songs, whatever he could find, even personal narratives where people would think they were talking to the president, because by golly, my grandfather and uncle were operating under the auspices of the Library of Congress. By then, they were the honorary curators of that. They were equipped with a Model A Ford and a 390-pound recording machine in the trunk, and all the aluminum discs, which they recorded direct to disc long before that became fashionable. This was the book that first came from that trip, American Ballads and Folk Songs, in 1935. And then, when they were in Angola prison in Louisiana, they came across a fellow who claimed to be the king of the 12-string guitar. He was in prison for assault with intent to commit murder. He had previously served time in a Texas prison for murder. When he got out, the family, Alan and John, moved him up to New York, got him a record deal, got him a publishing deal, later, posthumously, but they did get him a radio show, and Alan had a national radio show by that time, and they got him hooked up with a publisher, the Richmond organization, which at the time was the folk publisher in the world. And then posthumously, they got him affiliated with BMI, so he was able to get paid. A black musician in the 40s and 50s getting paid for his work, other than somebody like Duke Ellington, was very, very difficult and rare. This is probably the best album that you can still find of Leadbelly's, and it has most all of the songs that are best known that he created. So, whoops, we got a different, well, let's not worry about that right now. I'm going to sing a different one called Ain't No More Cane on This Brazos. Ain't no more cane on this Brazos, Lord, 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 all done been ground into molasses. Lord, 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 you ought to have been on this river in 1904. Lord, 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 you'd find a dead man on every turn row. Lord, 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 don't you drive me, Captain, like you did poor Shine. Lord, 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 drove that bully till he went stone blind. Lord, 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 you ought to have been on this river in 1909. Lord, 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 they was whipping the bullies up and down the line. Lord, 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 you ought to have been on this river in 1910. Lord, 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 they was whipping the women like they whipped the men. Lord, 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 ain't no more cane on this Brazos. Lord, 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 all done been ground into molasses. Lord, Lord, Lord. When I was a little bitty baby, my mama would rock me in the cradle in them old cotton fields back home. It was down in Louisiana, just about a mile from Texarkana, in them old cotton fields back home. It may sound a little bit funny, but we never made very much money in them old cotton fields back home. When them cotton balls get rotten, you can't pick very much cotton in them old cotton fields back home. Massa told the boys to pick a bale of cotton. Yeah, Massa told the boys to pick a bale a day. Oh, Lordy, pick a bale of cotton, Nana. Oh, Lordy, pick a bale a day. My wife and I can pick a bale of cotton. Yeah, my wife and I can pick a bale a day. Oh, Lordy, pick a bale of cotton, Nana. Oh, Lordy, pick a bale a day. Jump down, turn around, pick a bale of cotton. Gonna jump down, turn around, pick a bale a day. Oh, Lordy, pick a bale of cotton, Nana. Oh, Lordy, pick a bale a day. Mr. Pete Gerson can pick a bale of cotton. Yeah, Mr. Pete Gerson can pick a bale a day. Oh, Lordy, pick a bale of cotton, Nana. Oh, Lordy, pick a bale a day. Alsta Haley can pick a bale of cotton. Yeah, Alsta Haley can pick a bale a day. Oh, Lordy, pick a bale of cotton, Nana. Oh, Lordy, pick a bale a day. Pick a bale, pick a bale, pick a bale of cotton. Gonna pick a bale, pick a bale, pick a bale a day. Pick a bale, pick a bale, pick a bale of cotton. Gonna pick a bale, pick a bale, pick a bale a day. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to move along here to a better known song, perhaps. And this one is what I brought the cowbell for, as you will see. This was a TV show, actually, in the 70s and 80s. It ran for 9 years on NBC. It was a musical variety show titled The Midnight Special. If you go to Houston, you better walk right. You better not stagger, and you better not fight. Sheriff Benson will arrest you, and I'll carry you down. If the jury finds you guilty and you're penitentiary bound, let the midnight special shine a light on me. Let the midnight special shine an ever-loving light on me. Well, you wake up in the morning, you hear the ding-dong ring. They march to the table. It's the same damn thing. There's only one table, knife and fork and a pan. If you say anything about it, you're in trouble with the man. Let the midnight special shine a light on me. Let the midnight special shine an ever-loving light on me. Well, yonder comes, let's see. Oh, Thelma says she loves me, but I believe she tell a lie. She hadn't been to see me since the last July. She brought me little coffee, she brought me little tea. She brought me nearly everything but the jailhouse key. Well, yonder comes Sheriff Jack Smith. How in the world do you know? I can tell him by his big hat and it's 44, if you're wondering why a deputy's traveling through this land. I heard him tell the trustee, I'm the transfer man. Let the midnight special shine a light on me. Let the midnight special shine an ever-loving light on me. Well, yonder comes Dr. Milton. How in the world do you know? Well, he gave me some tablets on the day before, but there never was a doctor traveling through this land that could cure the fever of a convict man. Well, yonder comes a little Rosie. How in the world do you know? I can tell her by her apron and the dress she wore, umbrella on her shoulder, pardon paper in her hand. She come to tell the trustee, turn loose of my man, let the midnight special shine a light on me. Let the midnight special shine an ever-loving light on me, ever-loving light on me, ever-loving light on me. So next up is the best-known song I would expect that Leadbelly wrote. You probably can't read that, but it's the Billboard chart, and it shows that the Irene, Goodnight Irene, was the #1 song in the country for 13 weeks in 1950. That was longer, that's 3 months. And this is Billboard, not some jockey someplace somewhere. It was #1 longer than Patti Page's version of Tennessee Waltz or Nat King Cole's version of Mona Lisa. So you probably remember this one, and if you want to sing along with it, you're certainly welcome to do so. Last Saturday night I got married. Me and my wife settled down. Now me and my wife done parted. Gonna take me a stroll uptown. Irene, good night. Irene, good night. Good night, Irene. Good night, Irene. I'll see you in my dreams. Sometimes I live in the country. Sometimes I live in town. Sometimes I take a great notion to jump in the river and drown. I asked your mother for you. She told me you were too young. Now wish to the Lord I'd never seen your face, that you ever was born. Irene, good night. Irene, good night. Good night, Irene. Good night, Irene. I'll see you in my dreams. Stop your rambling. Stop your gambling. Stop staying out late at night. Go home to your wife and family and sit by your fireside bright. I love Irene, God knows I do. Love her till the seas run dry. But if Irene turns her back on me, I'll take morphine and die. Irene, goodbye. Irene, goodbye. Goodbye, Irene. Goodbye, Irene. I'll get you in my dreams. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is, we're sort of gonna segue over to Alan Lomax, my uncle, the younger of the two sons that my grandfather had, and this is the book that he and his father put out. This is Alan's book, actually, Folk Songs of North America, which rode around in paperback versions and hundreds of singers' guitar cases back in the days when people sang other people's songs. This was Alan's autobiography, Land Where the Blues Began, which was also the title of an American Patchwork series that he did on PBS, 5 shows. This, in 1938, he sat down with Jelly Roll Morton, Jelly Roll Morton was one of the founders of jazz music. Alan sat down with him in the Library of Congress, and they had a long talk. And Jelly Roll would illustrate the various points he was making with piano passages, because that was his instrument. And Alan, this eventually wound up being a 7 CD package that won 2 Grammy Awards in about, 2000. And it was also one of the very first examples of oral history. This is the book written about Alan, his biography, Land Where the Blues Began. The Man Who Recorded the World, written by John Schwed, who just put out a book on Harry Smith. Alan won the National Medal of Arts, and in 1935, he was in Nassau after he had spent a year and a half in Haiti recording an album that later became The Music of Haiti. That one had 7 CDs, a DVD, a replica of their journal. They spent a year in Haiti recording the music of that country. And that came out, because of the recording quality, it took many, many years to get it cleaned up enough with modern technology to issue. So after Haiti, he went over to Nassau, and he was sitting around and heard this song, asked people, well, where'd that come from? They went, I don't know, we've just been singing it here for years. So he decided to record it, and he went and found the Cleveland Simmons Group. And he recorded Sloop John B. with them in 1935. And there it is on YouTube. If you want to see and hear the very original version of this song, it was called Heist Up the John B. Sail. And if you want a good laugh, go to the Beach Boys official promotional video. Make sure it's the promotional video for Sloop John B. You'll have a very good time, I can guarantee that. The Beach Boys didn't want this on the album because they didn't write it, and they were making a comeback then because the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the English invasion had happened and sort of shoved them aside. So the song wound up, Capitol Records said, nope, it's going to be on the album. It went to number 3 on the charts and set up the Good Vibrations and Wouldn't It Be Nice and other songs. This was all on an album called Pet Sounds, which many think is one of the best rock albums ever made. So here's a number of people recorded it between 1935 and 1966 when the Beach Boys had it. So here we go. We sailed on the sloop John B., my grandfather and me. Round Nassau Harbor we did roam, drinking all night, had a big fight. I feel so break up, I want to go home. So heist up the John B. sail and see how the mainsail sets. Send for the captain ashore, I want to go home. Please let me go home, I want to go home. I feel so break up, I want to go home. Well, the first mate, he got drunk. He bust up the captain's trunk. Constable had to come and take him away. Sheriff John Stone, please leave me alone. I feel so break up, I want to go home. Well, the cook, he got fits. He threw out all of the grits, and he went and ate up all of the corn. I want to go home, please let me go home. This is the worship since I ever been born. So heist up the John B. sail And see how the mainsail sets. Send for the captain ashore. I want to go home. Please let me go home. I want to go home. This is the worst trip that I've ever been on. Now, Alan was not the only Lomax family member of that generation to win the National Medal of Arts. My aunt, Bess Lomax Hawes, also won that award. She began her career with the Almanac Singers in around 1938-39 and went on to become a college professor, a guitar teacher who helped Ry Cooder get started learning basic guitar. She wrote this book and discovered Bessie Jones and the Georgia Sea Island Singers. And for 15 years, she was the head of the Folk Arts Division of the National Endowment for the Arts. And in that position, she dispensed millions and millions of dollars over those 15 years to various people in the folk world, not just music, but arts and crafts and all manner of folk things. And she was also one of the founders in 1968 of the annual festival, the American Festival of Folklife, that's held in Washington, D.C., underneath the monument. So, but what you will remember her for is a song that she co-wrote in 1949 with a lady named Jacqueline Steiner. Did you ever hear the story of a man named Charlie on a tragic and fateful day? With 10 cents in his pocket, Charlie kissed his wife and family, went to ride on the MTA. Charlie handed in his dime at the Scully Square station with a change at Jamaica Plain. But when he got there, the conductor told him one more nickel. Charlie couldn't get off of that train. And did he ever return? No, he never returned. And his fate is still unlearned. Poor old Charlie. He may ride forever 'neath the streets of Boston. He's the man who never returned. Charlie's wife goes down to the Kendall Square station every day at 2:15, and through the open window she hands Charlie a sandwich as the train goes rumbling through. Citizens of Boston, don't you think it's a scandal how the people have to pay and pay? Fight the fare increase, vote for George O'Ryan, let's get Charlie off the MTA. And did he ever return? No, he never returned. And his fate is still unlearned. What a pity. He may ride forever 'neath the streets of Boston. He's the man who never returned. The man who never returned. The man who never returned. And the MTA difficulties continue in Boston, and this song gets brought up every time they have problems, which is quite often. I don't know if Charlie's still there or not, but the Kingston Trio made a huge hit from this song in 1959. All right. Oops, I'm not sure what this is. All right, now we're going to kind of do some shout-outs for other Lomax family members. Altogether, there are 52 books, hundreds and hundreds of magazine articles, and hundreds of albums that the family has contributed to. The slide I just passed up is Dr. Anna Lomax Wood, who put out her latest book 2 years ago. Then we have my son, John Nova, who had done 2 books by the time he passed, and of course wrote the book that I'm selling today, The Soul of Houston, which has gathered up all 12 walks he made across this city. They would go get on a bus, he and David Beebe. They would ride to the end of the line, get off, and walk back. The longest walk I think they did was 21 miles. This is Bess Lomax Hall's daughter, Naomi Bishop, who has written with her husband 2 books about their adventures in Nepal in a very, very remote village. And at one point they studied primate behavior and later came back and studied a village, a remote village there, published 2 books. And, well, this slide didn't work. It's For the Sake of the Song, the Townes Van Zandt songbook, which my brother Joe and I put together. And it has been, it was published in 1978, and if you can find a copy today, you'll be very lucky to find one with less than $1,000. It's so rare, there are only a few hundred printed. So now we've come to my father. These are 4 of his albums, 2 of which are on sale at the merch table. He made his debut in 1956 as a singer for an album. He started the Houston Folklore Society 5 years before that. The 2 albums at the top are reissues of 1969 and 1965 recordings. And the Folklore Society, he also managed blues singer Lightnin' Hopkins for 10 years and helped Lightnin' get his career untracked. He booked Lightnin'. He went on some of the shows with him and would open the show doing his own a cappella folk songs and then bring on Lightnin'. But most importantly, he would collect the money and see that his wife back home, Lightnin's wife, got most of it. Lightnin' was known to gamble and carouse, let us say. This is some of the members of the Houston Folklore Society that came through the Folklore Society. In many cases, this was the first time they had a chance to sing beyond their own living rooms. I don't know how well you can read the list, but it was Guy Clark, Steve Earle, Lucinda Williams, Nancy Griffith, Shake Russell, Richard Dobson, just a ton of them that came through and started with the Houston Folklore Society and in many cases went on to greater fame and glory. So now we come to the oldest song that I sing. It was first in a book in Scotland in 1547. It was, so I figure it had to have existed for some time before it was published in a book in Scotland. And the publishing, of course, was just barely 100 years after, less than 100 years after Gutenberg invented the printing press. So you can imagine they were probably somewhat selective in the songs they chose. Now, in American Ballads and Folk Songs in 1935, it was the first time this song was published in the United States. And in that book, it has 35 verses. Yes, 35 verses. But, hey, don't worry. I have edited this down to some degree. But I have not edited, my version is 18 verses. But I did not brutally edit this song as badly as Bruce Springsteen did. When he recorded it, it only had 9 verses, and he left out all the endings. I mean, and notice I say endings, because there's more than one. So you can do the math here. Bruce Springsteen, 9 verses. Me, John Lomax III, 18 verses. So it's just plain as day that when it comes to this song, I'm twice as good as the boss. Yeah. Froggy went a-courtin' and he did ride, Froggy went a-courtin' and he did ride, sword and a pistol by his side, He rode right up to Miss Mousie's door, He rode right up to Miss Mousie's door, knocked 3 times, gave out a roar, He marched right in, took her on his knee, He marched right in, took her on his knee, said, Miss Mousie, will you marry me? Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. Well, not without my Uncle Rat's consent. Uh-huh, uh-huh. Without my Uncle Rat's consent, I wouldn't marry the president. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. When Uncle Rat gave his consent, uh-huh, uh-huh. When Uncle Rat gave his consent, the weasel wrote the publishment. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. And where shall the wedding supper be? Uh-huh, uh-huh. Where shall the wedding supper be? Way down yonder in a hollow tree. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. And what shall the wedding supper be? Uh-huh, uh-huh. And what shall the wedding supper be? 2 blades of grass and a black-eyed pea. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. First come in was a flying moth. Uh-huh, uh-huh. First come in was a flying moth. He laid out the tablecloth. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. Next come in was a bumblebee. Uh-huh, uh-huh. Next come in was a bumblebee dancing a jig with a 2-legged flea. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. Next come in was an old brown cow. Uh-huh, uh-huh. Next come in was an old brown cow, tried to dance but didn't know how. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. Next come in was a little June bug. Uh-huh, uh-huh. Next come in was a little June bug, brought some whiskey in a jug. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. Next come in was a little brown snake. Uh-huh, uh-huh. Next come in was a little brown snake, coiled himself round the wedding cake. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. Now it gets weird. Next come in was a yaller dog. Uh-huh, uh-huh. Next come in was a yaller dog, chased Miss Mousie in a hollow log. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. Next come in was an old tomcat. Uh-huh, uh-huh. Next come in was an old tomcat, ate Miss Mousie just like that. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. Froggy, he went down in the lake. Uh-huh, uh-huh. Froggy, he went down in the lake. He got swallowed by a big black snake. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. Big black snake crawled out on land. Uh-huh, uh-huh. Big black snake crawled out on land. He was killed by a nobleman. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. Nobleman went off to France. Uh-huh, uh-huh. Nobleman went off to France. That's the end of my romance. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. That's my story, 1, 2, 3. Uh-huh, uh-huh. That's my story, 1, 2, 3. The snake, the frog, and Miss Mousie. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. There's my guitar on the shelf. Uh-huh, uh-huh. There's my guitar on the shelf. Want any more? Gotta sing it yourself. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. Thank you, thank you. It's you can hear the Seeger version, the Springsteen version on an album called The Seeger Sessions. All 9 verses. All right. This is a song that originated with the child ballads in England in somewhere in the 1870s or 1880s. If you have your child ballad book handy, turn to child ballad number 276, and you can sing along with me on this one. I learned it from my dad, and it had a totally different title, which you will soon see why. Early one morning, I went out to plow. Tee-roo, I went out to plow with 4 13 oxen and a danged old cow. Tee-roo, and a danged old cow. Well, up jumped the devil, says, how do you do? Tee-roo, says, how do you do? There's one in your number that I must have. Tee-roo, that I must have. Please don't take my oldest son. Tee-roo, my oldest son, for this work on a place that has to be done. Tee-roo, that has to be done. It's all I want, that old wife of yours. Tee-roo, that old wife of yours. Well, you can have her with all of my heart. Just promise me you'll quickly depart. Tee-roo, you'll quickly depart. Well, he carried her on about half of the road. Tee-roo, about half of the road. He says, oh, woman, you're a hell of a load. Tee-roo, a hell of a load. Well, he carried her on to the old devil's door. Tee-roo, to the old devil's door. Up jumped the little devil with ball and chain. She swung out her foot and kicked out his brains. Tee-roo, she kicked out his brains. 9 little devils went climbing the wall. Tee-roo, went climbing the wall, saying, take her back, Pappy, she'll murder us all. Tee-roo, she'll murder us all. Early next morning, I peeped through the crack. Tee-roo, I peeped through the crack. I spied the old devil dragging her back. Tee-roo, he's bringing her back. So now you know what a woman can do. Tee-roo, what a woman can do. She can whip up the devil and her husband too. Tee-roo, and her husband too. So you see, women are smarter than men. Tee-roo, they're smarter than men. They can go to hell and come back again. Tee-roo, and come back again. My father would always introduce this song, which, by the way, was on an Elvis album cut in 1970 and not released until 2020. But he didn't use it. He only uses one verse of the verses that I heard my father sing. My dad would say, well, you know, there's 3 kinds of lies in this world. You got your regular old lies, you know, just white lies, whatever you want to call them, just plain old lies. Then you have bald-faced lies. And then you have whoppers. And this song tops the whopper list in American folk music. I was born 10,000 years ago, and there's nothing in this world that I don't know. I saw Peter, Paul, and Moses playing Ring Around the Roses, and I'll whip the guy that says it isn't so. It's a lie, it's a lie. Ship ahoy, ship a-hey, ship a-hi, hi, hi. Oh, I've sailed the 7 seas and my dirty dungarees, but I never, ever, ever saw a mermaid. I saw Satan when he looked the garden o'er, saw Adam and Eve driven from the door, and from the bushes peeking, I saw the apple they were eating. I know 'cause I'm the guy what at the core. I taught Samson how to use his mighty hands, first showed Columbus these happy lands, and for the Pharaoh's many kids I built the pyramids, and to Sahara carried all its sands. I taught Solomon all his ABCs, was the first man to eat Limburger cheese. And while sailing in the bay with Methuselah one day, I saw his whiskers flapping in the breeze. I was with Jonah when he was engulfed by the whale, and I never thought he'd live to tell the tale. But Jonah eating garlic, well, he gave the whale the colic. He spit him up and let him out of jail. Now, the next verse is about Queen Elizabeth. So I'm not going to sing that verse out of respect. Instead, I've made up my own last verse. And you people are among the very first in the entire universe to hear this last verse. So I hope you're ready, because if you're not, tough. I'm going to sing it anyway. I was married to Madonna secretly, but man, that gal was way too much for me. So I went 10,000 miles down under, found some heavy metal thunder, and brought back the band AC/DC. Highway to hell, highway to hell. Dirty deeds done dirt cheap. Dirty deeds done dirt cheap. It's a lie, it's a lie. Ship ahoy, ship a-hey, ship a-high, high, high. Oh, I've sailed the 7 seas in my dirty dungarees, but I never, ever, ever saw a mermaid. Thank you. I always love to sing. Always love singing that one. Okay, I don't know where this one came from. And you know, the internet doesn't even know. You can find a lot of different versions of this song, but nowhere can you find who actually created it, where it was created, and what year it was created. But it's a wonderful song, and it will be, I think I can say without fear of being contradicted, that this song is the only song you're ever going to hear in your whole life about the sex lives of marine creatures. Caviar comes from the virgin sturgeon. Virgin sturgeon's a mighty fine fish. Virgin sturgeon need no urging. That's why caviar is my dish. Shad-roe comes from female shadfish. Shadfish have a sorry fate. Pregnant shadfish is a sad fish, got that way without a mate. Oysters, they are fleshy bivalves, live their lives within their shell. How they diddle is a riddle, but they do, so what the hell? Mrs. Clam is optimistic, shoots her eggs into the sea. Hopes her suitor is a shooter, hits the self-same spot as she. The turtle lives twixt plated decks, which totally conceal its sex. I think it clever of the turtle in such a fix to be so fertile. Give a thought unto the codfish, always there when duty calls. Female codfish is an odd fish, from her come those codfish balls. I gave caviar to my granddad, he's the gent of 93. We heard screaming from the backyard, he chased grandma up a tree. I fed caviar to my girlfriend, she's a virgin tried and true. Now that virgin needs no urging, there ain't nothing she won't do. Caviar comes from the virgin sturgeon. I got one more, and then we're going to close up shop, and we will have our merch table open, of course. But I want to close with, I usually close my shows with a song by Ed McCurdy in 1950 called Last Night I Had the Strangest Dream, which was one of the best anti-war songs that's ever been written. It's the official song of the Peace Corps and so on and so forth. But because on March the 8th, I performed in Fort Worth, Texas for Hometowns Fest, which had to do with Townes Van Zandt, who was born in Fort Worth. His 80th birthday would have been March 7th. So I went to sing there, and I learned one song that I thought is a good song to close with. And it was written by Townes with Susanna Clark, and it is one of his songs that isn't all gloomy and doomy and depressed and all of that. So here we go. Well, I'm building a houseboat in heaven to sail those deep and holy seas. I'm building a houseboat in heaven, and it's welcome aboard, you sweet pea. Well, the bow, she is made of solid silver, and the hull, she is made of solid gold. Well, she ain't much along the lines of floating, but she's yours, babe, to have and to hold. I'm building a houseboat in heaven to sail those deep and holy seas. I'm building a houseboat in heaven, and it's welcome aboard, you sweet pea. Well, I rode my old guitar to heaven, but heaven didn't feel too much like home. So I'm headed out onto them lonesome oceans with my ruby-studded houseboat to roam. I'm building a houseboat in heaven to sail those deep and holy seas. I'm building a houseboat in heaven, and it's welcome aboard, you sweet pea. Thank you so much. Thank you, Orange Show Foundation. Thank you, Pete Gershon, for putting me up here. Thank all of you all for coming out. I do have Townes' latest biography called My Years with Townes Van Zandt, written by his road manager for the last 15 years of his life, in hardback and softback. And for those of you who haven't gotten enough, I'm going to be doing Writers' Night at Anderson Fair next Thursday. I believe the doors 7:30 and the event starts at 8:30. I'm on with another one or two writers, I'm not sure which. But thank you so much again, and it is a joy to perform for you and to celebrate the Orange Show. And thank you to the Orange Show Foundation again, and thank you to all of you.
So good, man. Amazing.
It was fun.
Another big hand for John Lomax III. Please, please. The man deserves it. Thank you so much. Thanks to all of you for coming out today. It was a really special day. We love Houston, and we love Houston's history, and we love all y'all. And please keep in touch with us. Art Car Parade right around the corner. We do a lot of fun stuff here. We really want to keep in touch with you all, so thank you very much. Can I help with anything?
Maybe the tape deck.
Yeah.
And I think that's all.
And this is yours?
Oh, yeah, that too.
That was so good.
I just want to say, whoever thought Old Weird Houston's a good idea had a great idea, man. That's beyond good.
That was me.
That
was
yeah?
me.
Okay, I'm Alan Foster, man.
Awesome.
All right. Well, your name?
I'm Pete Gershon, and I'm a curator here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I fit just right in, you know. And then you bring us over here to East Houston. It's a wonderful. I'm so glad we're here. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you